live in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody to the Forza Vertical AI podcast. This is a podcast where we get into real vertical AI use cases for the enterprise. I'm excited this week to be joined by Cyril Treacy, the Chief Customer Officer from OpenEnterprise.ai. And of course, this wouldn't be the Forza Vertical AI podcast without our CEO and co-founder, Dominic Donato. So welcome, guys.
Hey, Andy. Hi, Cyril.
Nice to meet you both. Hi, guys.
So as we know, our listeners want to get straight into the AI use cases. But before that, Cyril, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and maybe how you know Dominic?
Yeah, so myself and Dom go back 20 years. I think my claim to fame is I showed him how to use Salesforce back in 2002. Joined as one of our first SEs globally. I was fortunate to come across Salesforce back in 2000, actually looking for a CRM system for my software company, and spotted this software as a service, pay-as-you-go thing. You know, at the time it was Siebel. And I remember getting a large quote from Oracle for CRM, and I decided to look, and that led me to joining Salesforce as employee number 13 in EMEA, and about 85 globally. And we can talk more about some of the nostalgia later on. But eventually worked with Salesforce about 22 and a half years and left as a vice president.
Excellent.
What are you doing now, Cyril?
Yeah, I'm actually working with an AI startup called OpenEnterprise. OpenEnterprise is similarly minded to a Forza in that vertical AI is going to be the future. So if you think about AI, you know, back in around October 2022, we had the ChatGPT breakthrough, where everyone suddenly realized, wow, this is the entire knowledge of the internet. And it can actually write a book for me if I want and generate new and amazing new things. You know, it had the ability, but it could write you a novel. But if you asked it the question, should I ensure a merger between two software companies? The answer at best would be made up, and at worst would be very bad. So, you know, if you're an enterprise and you're doing underwriting of insurance, how do you make binary decisions about underwriting a risk, yes or no? When you're underwriting large specialty risk, which is kind of the market we're going after, you can't trust ChatGPT to give you that answer because it's just looking up the internet for the next best word to answer that.
I mean, I totally agree with that. It's probably a good guess because I'm obviously a big proponent of vertical AI. And the way I try to explain it to people is horizontal AI, like you said, ChatGPT, they want to write a book, an email, or write a poem or a limerick or something, right? No problem. But ask for something very specific, like, you know, you wouldn't ask it to do like a, I don't know, a medical diagnosis or as you said, like, you know, a complex question like, should I insure a business transaction? Or in our case, because we focus on consumer goods, you know, it's like you're not going to ask it to do something which is like complex task regarding like recommending promotions and things. That's where you want a level of specificity that's very, very different. But I think that I always like to say that horizontal AI, though, is valuable. I mean, ChatGPT is great if you do want to write an email to, you know, your local council for a parking ticket, or I don't know, like, you know, maybe an email to a customer or something. It might help you, but it's valuable, but it's not the same type of deep value you get in a vertical. I mean, what example you gave straight off the bat, I mean, that's potentially a multi-million-dollar plus decision, you know, ensuring a merger. Yeah. Cyril, how are you finding the market? Do you think people get this yet about the whole concept of vertical AI, or is it still new?
No, well, if you look at the, you know, the hype cycle, I think AI took off and went parabolic really quick back in 2022. And I think everyone thought it was going to transform. And I think, you know, I think it was Mr. Mark Benioff said, you know, you underestimate what you can do in a year, but over 10 years, you totally underestimate. You know, this is like the invention of electricity. It's going to transform every single industry, you know, over time. it's as big as that, or the invention of the internet, you know, which you all now take for granted. But like the internet started when we were in Salesforce in the early days, it was a 56K modem, Dom.
Yeah, I remember.
It was 30 seconds waiting for your accounts or contacts to show up on screen. You know,
I used to carry an ISDN modem around with me for the city tour events. It's quite funny. Yeah.
and now you can get a mobile Wi-Fi router that gives you, you know, a gigabyte
Yeah.
anywhere, or you can use Starlink. So, you know, the other thing is technology changes so fast that you can underestimate how fast, you overestimate how fast things are. You know, when the iPhone came out 2007 or so, you know, everyone was on BlackBerries, but look how that was transformed literally 3 or 4 years later. I think we're in the middle of that. So we're at the far side of the hype cycle. We've gone into the trough of disillusionment. But what's now going to happen is lots of really interesting vertical AI use cases are going to come out. They're going to massively transform productivity.
You just said it. The two key words are use cases. So, Andy and I were hosting a dinner in London. Oh God, what day is this? 2 days ago or something, and we had like executives from toy companies through to beverage companies, all sorts of like from our customer and prospect-based partners, and we were just talking about like how we're using AI, etc. And what we found was everybody's got some sort of project going or they're piloting Copilot, and you get this mixed bag of results depending on just whether the user is really taking an interest in trying to exploit it. And so there probably is what the sense of it was, yeah, we're getting some sort of productivity lift out of this. It's a bit hard to prove whether it really makes a difference, kind of subjective. But the one thing they kept coming back to and they kept asking me was, what are the use cases? What do you mean vertical use cases? Like, tell me exact examples. And I think that the funny thing about this thing that you said, we're in the trough of disillusionment. Actually, I think for our companies, it's that demand to show me the value and the use case that I actually think is going to be super helpful. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, there's two elements to that. One is the cost savings that you'll make with automation. Think of it as RPA on steroids, you know.
Yeah.
And what we did with Open Enterprise is we wanted to combine unstructured with structured data. And I'll give you two real good solid use cases. So let's just say we pick CPG, right? So one of your customers is Walmart, right? And they're selling Unilever products, you know, and they need to ensure they're Walmarts. So, you know, a lot of the American businesses are insured out of specialty MGAs and insurers in London. So it's 100 Walmarts. You want to get them insured for general indemnity, slip and fall. So they need to know, do you have steps? You know, do you have lifts? What's the store layout? What's the statement of value? So how much would it cost to reinstate the store if it burnt down? What loss runs, so what previous claims you've had. So you'll get 100 Walmarts sent in looking for insurance in a particular state. And they'll have maybe 300-400 attachments. And these attachments will be Excel files, and you could have 20,000 lines in the Excel files. Could you imagine how big a Walmart store is?
Yeah.
Somebody has to read all of those attachments. And what they typically do is they'll outsource that to a BPO. And then someone will actually spend 2 or 3 weeks reading that and then send that back to the underwriter. And then he or she will make the decision about to underwrite the risk. With Open Enterprise, we take those attachments, we digitize them, we put them into Salesforce, we go way beyond OCR, we go into HTML, and we also apply industry-specific models to give you summarization. And let's just say 5 of those stores have discrepancies. So this is where you need to double click in and look at that. We can do those 100 stores, ingest it into Salesforce, apply industry-specific and industry-trained AI models in 5 minutes.
You see,
And
it's
then
that and before the 5 minutes, how long, how expensive, like, you know, and it's not even just you know, this is what I think that people aren't quite prepared for yet is Yeah, there's an efficiency gain there, of course, for like, and a cost gain, but sorry, excuse me, cost saving, but it's not just that, it's also the time it takes. So the actual speed of your business and the ability to actually do so much more and make decisions so much quicker. It's and the thing is, like that example you give, which I actually love, it's a really good example of vertical AI. And if I just respond with an example, a simple example of imagine you're a sales manager for a consumer goods company, and one of your team is off sick, but he's got like 20 to 30 visits to do this week. Well, how are they going to be covered? How do I reallocate it? Well, in the old days, we know that you could go into your various productivity tools, look at the CRM system, try and figure out where everybody is and drag the meetings around. Or, that is absolutely possible. It might take you a couple of hours to do it properly and communicate things, or just ask AI to do it by just simply telling it, and it's done in seconds. And I just think that these kind of straightforward vertical AI use cases will change the productivity in industry like significantly. Now take those two examples, your Walmart insurance example or my consumer goods sales manager example. Those are like multi-hour, multi-day examples going to minutes. And I don't think you're going to necessarily get that from horizontal AI. You might have lots of great reasons for horizontal AI, but think of the impact that those vertical AI use cases have on people's jobs are. So I think that kind of like you, I just think that 1 year, well, what do you think? So I reckon 1 year from now, we're living in a different world because this is going to happen so quickly.
Yes, definitely. So, the value, and I validated this with about 30 different insurance companies. For an underwriter assistant who does a lot of the assembly of complex policies, there might be 4 or 5 underwriter assistants working for an underwriter, and then he's in Lloyd's, and then he approves and actually stamps the policy. Good old stamp, Dom. They still do it. But, so these guys are working on Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, PowerPoint presentations. We ingest all of that. They'd think underwriter assistants 50% increase in productivity and underwriters 30%. So what that means when they can grow their gross written premium, 30% more. And the other thing is, experienced specialty underwriters that specialize in commercial insurance, everything from satellites to horses. They're not easily found in the City of London. So they're knowledge workers, but you're going to make those knowledge workers 30% more productive. Like that's the holy grail of AI, and that's what everyone wants to get to. And the reason for that is small industry trained models is trained on a small subset of data. Like some of our models can work with an example of 100 policies. You don't need the hundreds and thousands of tokens, and also there's a big expense for those models. So they're small, discrete, but it's probably a tenth of the cost of going with an OpenAI model that goes off and searches the whole internet for the answer. You don't need to search the internet. You need to search your local underwriter handbook, which gives you guidance on whether you should or not approve a risk or not. And then 100 policies to train up, and then start giving recommendations. And really think of these as being, we call it AI Sherpa. So the Sherpa shows you the shortest way up the mountain and also carries some of the load.
Yeah.
And if you had 3 or 4 little Sherpas helping you electronically to get through a lot of admin, overhead, time wasting stuff, you can move on to higher value stuff. And then at the end of the day, you're still human at the helm, and you make the decision about whether the business should happen or not.
Andy and I are big fans of a podcast called the All In Podcast, and one of the things, Andy, I think just to bring you in a wee bit here was, if I remember correctly, I heard on one of the recent episodes it said something like $1 billion to train or build and train an LLM model now. Wasn't that right? It's like to act, but I think one of the things that I was going to say is, when you hear that, I think the message is the LLMs are already there. The vendors that build them are already there. That doesn't stop the rest of us though. Like that isn't the be all end all. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think to your point, it was actually even a couple of episodes before that they had Sam Altman on from
Yeah.
OpenAI, and he aligned with that point. And what he said was, look, these models are extremely expensive to build. There's a lot of big money that goes into these, but eventually there's going to be 3 or 4 of these that dominate the market. And I think he used the word scaffolding. It's the companies that put the scaffolding around it and enable the use cases that are going to see the exponential growth. And I think it's a really key point that you don't have to be the maker of the LLM. You need to make small models that are industry specific, and you need to enable the use cases. And
I think actually that actually is a great bridging point to we're recording this on what is this, the 12th of September? And next, so we're a week ahead of Dreamforce, but we all know what the big Dreamforce announcement is, and our old company and old part and still is our partner, Salesforce. Agentforce. Salesforce, it seems to me, my external view is they're not focusing on the LLM so much, but they're focusing on the way to build scaffolding for the customers. What's your take on Agentforce, Andy, and Cyril?
I think there's when we think about horizontal AI use cases, I think there's an exciting element to making it accessible to large groups of companies and users. And I think Agentforce will do that. It will help customer service agents. It will help from a self-service perspective on websites. I don't think it goes all the way to that kind of vertical specificity that we'd be just discussing on this podcast today. But I think, like everything, you need, like the Apple intelligence launch on Monday this week, you need the big companies to make things accessible. And I think Apple will do a good job of bringing it to the iPhone and making B2C consumers use it. I think Salesforce will do a good job of bringing it to the horizontal side of the enterprise. But I think it still presents a fantastic opportunity for companies like ours that are focused on the industry and vertical.
Yeah. What's your take, Cyril?
Yeah, well, I think, Mark talks about, Salesforce being, one of the biggest repositories of structured data on the planet. You think about how many, structured data they have, how much information customers have put into Salesforce. It's one of the biggest Oracle databases in the world. So there's an absolute gold mine of data there. And really, AI only runs on good data. If you have bad data, you feed it into an LLM, it spits out rubbish. So they've got this great repository of data and knowledge. Agentforce will, probably give suggestions and advice. They've had AI since 2016 with Einstein. This is the evolution of that to enable a salesperson to figure out what's the best way to get to the forecast number and give them advice and guide. So it's almost like guided CRM is the way I see Agentforce. And we'll have to wait and see what comes out next week, but it's super exciting no matter what way they do it.
Well, I kind of have similar views to you guys. I think it's a very clever idea and exciting. I think it's based on the AirKit acquisition they did for just a few $1 million, interestingly enough. But I think that my read on it is it's actually a great technology. I think it's really helpful for our partner companies because I think it's going to advance the adoption of AI in all sorts of different use cases. From what I've seen, they've given a great interface so that you can almost configure it and have it fire Apex triggers and things and workflows. For those of you listening to this who kind of technically understand that, that means you can basically have it fire with your own bespoke processes, which is really very, very cool. I did kind of smile to myself because I was thinking when I saw the interface, I was thinking I could have another AI engine fill it in. So I could probably in time, I already see a future of libraries of Agentforce little vignettes and things. But I was thinking, if you just take this a little further, like I'll just ask ChatGPT to create an Agentforce vignette for me, and I'll fill and do it. I think that it's very cool. I think that when you consider vertical AI, I think it will help with vertical AI actually. And I see it as a very complementary technology. But you have to do a lot of things that are more than just generative AI. Like I'll give you some quick examples. In fact, Cyril gave a great one already in his example insurance. There's structured data and there's unstructured data. One of the things, for example, in a Forza, we've got a studio, massive repository of unstructured data, photographs, contracts, all sorts of things could be in there. And photo automation and automation of logic around what happens in the field use case is very, very important. I also think that we've got to think about there's vertical AI. It's kind of like the sum of generative AI and applied AI. So if you take an example of like, let's predict an order, which is, I think, one of the examples that's flowing out there, actually generative AI is not a great technology for predicting an order. It can do a decent job, but it's a lot less accurate than using applied ML type algorithms that have been around for years. And I think there's some nuances to it all, but I think that my overall feedback is what a great way just to help bring it into the mainstream. And I also think for companies like us in the ecosystem, the more that Apple and Salesforce and Google with their Pixel offerings recently, there's so much marketing and advertising, and they must be spending billions of dollars on this that coming to the fore. They're doing a good job to educate them, everybody for us. And I think the sheer momentum of this is, it's like, I can't think like when we talk about AI, when we talk about AI, how long is it going to take for this to hit? And I reckon it's like 1 year or less. Part of the reason for that is if you're a customer buying software, you just can't avoid it. Nobody's building anything that doesn't have AI in it. Like, so that's my take.
Yeah, and funny enough, that brings us on to probably, the next thing, which is the risk. So I was talking to a CTO of an insurance company who's about to do a pilot with us, and he's currently banned the use of AI in the entire company. And
can you ban it?
He has banned it, but Microsoft keep turning on AI in their Office suite, and he keeps turning it off. And they turn it back on again because it's default on. That's not a surprise. But, that brings us on to the risks. So, the more CTOs and CIOs I talk to, the more they talked about the risks. And I'll do a quick run through of some of the risks, seen. So, banning keywords, bias, toxicity, prompt jailbreaks, PII exposure, IP loss, data leaks, hallucinations, inaccuracies, degradation, data drift, compliance breaches, policy violations, and regulatory investigations are some of the areas of deep concern around the use of AI in regulation.
So you read that list, like it's like I don't even want to get out of bed in the morning. I'm just like just skip the day.
Yeah, so you could just say no. So I actually had someone ask the question, said,
but if you say no, and your competitor is like, do you know what? I'll take some of those risks on. And by the way, my business is now 30% more productive. Like,
as long as you don't get fined by the EU, the EU AI Act has just came out, and I've actually read it in great detail. I actually just published a blog on it. And how the next need, just like Salesforce needed faster broadband to make it successful, we now need AI GRC, so governance, risk, and compliance. This is a new technology, just like GDPR came out. Did everyone stop sending emails when GDPR came along? No, they came up with a solution. So solutions will arise to all these problems. So I'm actually working with another AI startup called Inspec. These are ex-Meta and LinkedIn AI scientist and patent holding Microsoft and SAP product leader in Dublin. And they're supporting regulated industries by creating guardrails and GRC that includes all of the EU AI challenges. So I call it the Harry Potter wand dilemma. So I'm going to hand you Harry Potter's wand, right? But you don't know any magic words, Dom, right? And you also know it's super powerful. But you're worried other people will figure out how to use these wands and take market share from you. So there is a compelling event for them to use AI, but there's also all these concerns. So what they really need is almost like a technology that's an insurance policy that says, can you keep me out of the regulator's way, make sure I'm compliant? I can supply them with all the audit history for all the AI use. So there's going to be new solutions coming up to address that. And then once they see, okay, I've got the ability to be protected, I want the 30% to 50% productivity, but I want it with responsible AI. I want it with trustworthy AI. So these new technologies will allow you to do agentic AI and then to unlock that potential of vertical AI.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point. No, I agree. Now, one of the things I wanted to do was just talk, because Cyril, you and I, just before we started the actual official recording, we were just, you were reminding me today, we were recording this September 12th, but a lot of people will watch this podcast, they'll know me, they'll know you because of our shared past and the massive and amazing Salesforce alumni community out there. And back in those early days, in the early 2000s, you and I had a very dear colleague and friend. I just wondered if you wanted to say a couple of words.
Yes, so sadly we lost Carl Dempsey 3 years ago, and I think we both worked with him for about 15 or 16 years. And he had been my boss for about 5 of those years. You were my boss for a couple of those years, and we got on great. And he was such a gregarious, Hawaiian shirt embracing member of the Ohana. He always wore his Hawaiian shirt on Friday. He actually ran the graduate program, so he was a great ambassador for the company and the culture. And he was also crazy. He made me do Hell and Back, which was a race where you had to go over obstacles, underneath water, up and down mountains. And I trained for weeks to do that with him. And sadly, we lost him on an adventure race. It was a 7-hour adventure race, and unfortunately he passed away on a mountain. His wife climbed that mountain yesterday in his, which was very nice.
Well, on his, unfortunately, the third anniversary, and one day we just wanted to, Carl, if you're listening, we wanted to know we're still thinking about you. We haven't forgotten you, and you were such a special friend and colleague to everybody. That's cool. Well,
Yeah,
that was formative years, Cyril. That was a good team, but right, we kind of changed the world, didn't we?
We did, from a small scrappy startup back in the day, we'd no idea we'd become the second biggest software company in the world, and it was a great journey. I made lifelong friends like yourself, and we had great times, lots of trips to Hawaii, if you remember those,
I used to have to go once a quarter for a management meeting.
Yes,
The novelty wears off.
and they still do, first world problems.
One of the things I do love about Salesforce, I think, is one of Mark's superpowers is no matter how big it's got, he does somehow do an amazing job of culture and alignment on values with his own, people will know the V2 mom, of course. But it's not just the fact it's a very clever methodology, it's clearly something about him and his charisma and personality and drive that he can, align a company with tens of thousands of people so well. It's very, very impressive. Yeah.
He has and maintained that culture over many years, is some a feat. And his ethos of giving back and helping others, I think, has infected all of us.
Many stories known and lots of stories kept private and unknown of great generosity and help. Yeah, he's an incredible guy. Cyril, thank you so much for sharing your vertical AI stories. It's great. It's also great actually talking, I think, coming back to some really important points. I think it's all about the use case. And when we're talking about trying to explain it, yeah, everyone's done ChatGPT and played with it and done their stories and emails. And you had a great example of the Walmart insurance example. And I was coming up with ones, of course, for our own software around sales management, etc. But those vertical AI use cases are, I think, the things that will take this out of the trough of disillusionment, as you put it, and into like serious productivity gains. It's going to be, I tell you what, the next year is not going to be boring.
Yeah, Absolutely. And I think companies are going to go from, exploring to, to exponential.
Yeah.
Right. That's where AI is going to bring them. And that's a journey. They don't do it overnight. I think in 2024, they're doing a lot of experimentation to get comfortable with the technology.
Yeah.
Then start realizing they need vertical AI models. They're going to find those vertical AI models, and then they're going to go for scale. I think 2025 is going to be the year of scale AI, where it pops back up, and everyone starts to unlock this, because enterprises need security, they need trustworthy AI, they need responsible AI, they need transparent AI. All of that's coming. And then that'll become almost like the broadband to allow, just like Salesforce, to take off.
I
And
love the way you put that. What a great way to end. Year 2025 is a year with scale AI. I like that. Cyril, Andy, thanks so much. This is a great podcast. Good to see you, Cyril. I really appreciate you doing this.
indeed, we'll talk to you again. Good luck.
Guys, thank you.